Hello, this is Andy Port, Regional Sales Director with DocuWare. Thank you for taking the time to join today's demo exploring DocuWare's comprehensive integration with QuickBooks. This presentation assumes you have seen a basic DocuWare demo, including store, retrieve, and workflow. If you have not, please reach out to your DocuWare RSD for a presentation. Today we'll be reviewing additional functionality with QuickBooks using DocuWare Printer, email notification, Smart Index, Index Export integration, and Smart Connect. So let's begin. Since this is a QuickBooks demo, let's start here in QuickBooks. You'll notice the familiar three color-coded tabs on top: Purchase Orders, Open Bills, and Paid Bills. We will be using all three. Right now, we just have our purchase order, no bills or payments yet. So let's open this PO I started. It's from Twisted Sisters Cupcakes. Let's say we're ready to order some more cupcakes. Well, I have my PO created and ready. I can click Print and Purchase Order. When I do that, I have the option to print to DocuWare Printer. Printing to DocuWare Printer will, in one click, print the purchase order to my hard copy printer. It will also store the PO in DocuWare and capture the data from that document. It will also compose an email to my vendor. Let's go ahead and do that now. When I hit the print button, an email will pop open in Outlook. This email is already queued up to be sent to my vendor, and it includes an attachment of the purchase order. The email body includes information from that purchase order, including the PO number, the date, and the total amount. All I need to do is hit send. But rather than just hit send, I can also click DocuWare Send and Store. This will send the email, but store a copy of the email in DocuWare as well. So now I'll have a record that the PO and email was sent to this vendor. Let's do that now. Okay, so let's go to DocuWare. When we're in DocuWare, we can see a list we've created for our three-way match. And in that list, we now have our stored purchase order, as well as the email that was sent to the vendor that includes the attachment of the purchase order. At any time, this email can be right-clicked to be resent or forwarded to the vendor or another contact. This will open up in Outlook and allow you to resend. Okay, I think our cupcakes have arrived. Let's go to our document tray. For those who have seen a DocuWare demo before, you're familiar that the document tray can ingest documents from scans, emails, multifunction devices, or even drag and drop. Here, for those of you who are curious, is what a unicorn cupcake looks like. We also have our invoice from Twisted Sisters Cupcakes. We can clip these two documents together so that we can store them as one record. Now I'm ready to store my invoice. I can just select Accounting and Invoice under my Store dialog. As you can see, DocuWare has already captured the invoice number and the PO number from this invoice. If that information had not been automatically captured, I could just point and click on that from the document to populate in our index fields. However, rather than having to fill out all the rest of the information manually, I can select Start Smart Index. The Smart Index will look up that purchase order number and find it in QuickBooks, thus allowing it to complete the rest of the information on these index fields. It even populated the line item information and the total amount. Now we're ready to store this invoice in DocuWare. To do that, we just hit our Store button. Now, before this invoice is ready to be moved over into QuickBooks as a bill, we'll need to have it approved by an accounting manager. Let's go back to our email. Our accounting manager would have received this email notification saying that there's an invoice from Twisted Sisters Cupcakes for them to review. Without having to leave Outlook, they can on the portal reference the invoice, the purchase order, and the PO email. So I can just double click down here in my little portal screen to open a copy of that invoice. If everything looks good and I'm ready to send this to QuickBooks, I can just apply a stamp. I'll apply my stamp here for QuickBooks Send to my invoice, and all I need to do is put in my password. That invoice has now been approved in DocuWare, and the information is ready to be sent to QuickBooks to create the bill record. Let's explain how that's done. In the background is something running called our DocuWare Export Index Data Tool. This is actually looking in DocuWare for any time an invoice has been approved. Once an invoice has gone through the approval process, that index information is captured from the invoice, including the information that was brought over from the purchase order and the invoice number that was captured on the invoice document. Once that invoice has been approved, this tool will, on a schedule basis, push that index information directly into QuickBooks. So let's go to QuickBooks now and see what that information looks like. First, let's mark our purchase order as closed. We'll no longer need this. And I'm going to go ahead and close our PO. Now, while we no longer have an open purchase order, we now have a new bill. We can see that the information for that invoice, Twisted Sisters Cupcakes, and the invoice number has been propagated over directly from DocuWare. So without having to do any data entry or keying, that invoice number has been moved over into QuickBooks. I can double click on that to open the invoice record. Once the invoice record is opened up, you can see the information that has been pulled over from DocuWare. But you'll also notice 3 separate buttons. These are what's called Smart Connect buttons. The Smart Connect buttons allow you to retrieve the related documents to this invoice. These floating buttons will appear for any user who's given permission, but only when this QuickBooks screen has been opened. So now, if I'm looking for the invoice, the email, or the purchase order, I can just click the three-way match button here, and by reading the information on the screen, DocuWare is going to go out and fetch those 3 documents. So now I can see my invoice in, my purchase order, and my PO email. So think of the time saved, not just not having to do the data entry into QuickBooks, but no longer having to run to a file cabinet to find that invoice or purchase order or original paper document, or check your Outlook emails in order to find the email that was sent to the vendor. Okay, I'm almost done here. All I need to do is go ahead and pay my bill. I will go ahead and select this Pay Bill option here. And now I can select Pay the Bill and print a check. Now, when I click the Print Check button, as before, I have the option to print the check to DocuWare. So this will print a copy of that check on a local printer, as well as store an image of that check in DocuWare and relate it to that invoice and that purchase order for later reference. Again, giving me both a digital copy of a hard copy check that I'm sending out. And I can go ahead and now close this bill. When I do that, I can see now I no longer have any purchase orders or any open bills, but I do have a record of a bill that has been paid within the last 30 days. I hope this demonstration has provided you with a better understanding of how DocuWare can leverage your QuickBooks investment by automatically linking your documents and eliminating your data entry. These integrations will work with DocuWare Cloud, DocuWare On-Premise, QuickBooks Hosted, and QuickBooks Desktop. Please reach out to your RSD for more information and for pricing. Thank you for your time.